Hello and welcome back to Whiskey Wars. My name is Sean and tonight we'll be reviewing Woodford Reserve. Let's get into it. Okay, so here is our bottle for this evening, Woodford Reserve Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. And this has kind of become a modern classic. Now, to explain the modernness, we need to kind of get into the history. And so the history of Woodford, or what would become Woodford, is kind of complicated. But the distillery that would become Woodford was started back in 1812 by the Pepper family in the Glens Creek or Pepper Spring area. However, the current buildings that are on the property today were built by Oscar Pepper in 1838. Now, Oscar Pepper's master distiller at the time is the famous James Christopher Crowe, or Old Crow. And these two men would go on to make what we now today call bourbon. At least that is how some of history is kind of written. But the distillery we know today as Woodford Reserve would be bought and sold and closed and opened during Prohibition, and then finally sold to the Brown-Forman Company, which is the parent company of Woodford Reserve and Old Forester, and several other brands that we have reviewed. But the Woodford brand wouldn't really be born until the 1980s. And so that's why I say it has become kind of a modern classic. So for those of you that don't know, this is now the official bourbon of the Kentucky Derby, and it is certainly beloved by many in the bourbon community. Now, with all that said, though, let's get into this bottle, get some poured, and see what the nosing and tasting notes are. Now, I have to say, I was surprised looking through my channel that I had not reviewed Woodford Reserve. I thought for sure that I had, but then I realized the only one I'd reviewed was the Woodford Wheat Whiskey. I'd never reviewed the standard Woodford. And since we're doing the kind of $30-ish bourbons, I thought this was the perfect time to work it in, because it is a classic for sure. So let's get into the nose here first and see what we can get. And there is that just lovely Brown-Forman nose. I mean, you know immediately this is a Brown-Forman product. You're getting that really rich brown sugar, banana bread kind of note, which I really love that. What you get that's kind of different from the Old Forester nose is the brown sugar is even more forward. The banana is slightly more muted. There's a lot more caramel, and you're getting a lot more oak presence, but it's kind of a sweet oak, like a sweet toasted oak note. And then you're getting a very nice vanilla nose, as well as some kind of creamy notes on the nose as well. And there's a slight cinnamon note, kind of a spicy cinnamon in there. Just a slight acidic note showing through there. But all in all, a very nice nose. And what I really enjoy about Brown-Forman products is the nose is just so prominent and so really just enjoyable to smell. I mean, you could spend a lot of time smelling a lot of good quality Brown-Forman products. You could almost, use it as like a perfume or an air freshener in your home. It's just really lovely to smell. But I won't spend a whole lot more time on it. Let's get into the taste. That's what really matters. So as I mentioned earlier, when I was looking through, setting up the bracket for the $30-ish bourbons, I was thinking to myself, why doesn't Old Forester have a $30 price point bourbon? And the reason for that is that they do. It's just not called Old Forester. It's called Woodford Reserve. And I think the differences between the Old Forester profile and the Woodford profile is that you're getting a lot more kind of darker notes on this bourbon. So Old Forester has a lot of the darker notes anyway, but this is even darker, kind of heading towards 1910 country here. Not nearly as dark as that, but we're kind of approaching that. That's kind of the direction this bourbon is headed. And so I really enjoy that. I really like those darker notes. So you're getting kind of the aged leather note, a nice toasted, rich oak note, definitely some char in there, but it's not overwhelming in any way. It's not like, chewing on char on your palate. The banana bread note is really nice. It works really well with those other notes. The brown sugar is rich and just kind of full-bodied. And then you're certainly getting that caramel, but it's like a really high-quality caramel. This is not a cheap caramel at all. It's a very rich caramel with deep kind of flavor profiles. And so all that works really well in this bourbon. Let's go in for another sip. Just not just to get more stuff out of it, but also just because I'm enjoying it so much. It's kind of cool down here in the whiskey room because we are in winter. I think it's about 67, 68 degrees. And so what I've noticed on the other bourbons I've tried today is that the cooler temperatures has kind of muted the palate some. I have to kind of search for what I'm looking for more. But that's not necessarily true of this. I mean, it's still very full-bodied. It's just banana bread, brown sugar, caramel, vanilla, very rich cream notes. You're getting the oak in there, and it's a really nice oak. You're getting kind of darker, kind of leathery, sweet tobacco notes in there as well. This is a great bourbon experience, especially considering it is basically $30 even in my area. I think I paid $29.99 for this, and just an excellent bourbon. I cannot praise it enough. You know, I'm trying to compare it to others that we've had recently. The finish it's still kind of there. I mean, I can still taste the richness of it. And that's probably the best word to describe it. It's just rich. It's just rich and thick, great mouthfeel, lots of viscosity. It just like velvet on your palate. If you have not tried Woodford Reserve, then I cannot suggest it highly enough. At the price point, it's very hard to beat. I don't know if it's unbeatable, but it's certainly in the top tier of the $30-ish bourbons. So with that said, folks, I have to rate it pretty high. I'm going to say 8.1. I'm going to go 8.1. I don't want to go too crazy because, you know, maybe my palate is being generous, but certainly it's deserving of an 8.1, maybe higher. Maybe I'm lowballing it. But with all that said, folks, I hope you have enjoyed the review. And if you did, please hit that like button. I hope this information helped you. And also, folks, there's plenty more reviews from me, and you can click right here to see them. And also, if you're really enjoying the channel, then you can subscribe right here. And until next time, folks, just remember, you can never have too much good whiskey.